We go.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes.
This is our May 2026 edition of the Canine Educational Series with Michigan Humane. I am your host, Kellen Marceau, Volunteer Programs Coordinator at Westland. I am thrilled to be joined by my counterpart at our Detroit shelter, Allie Bradley, and Beth Chamberlain, our Behavior Programs Manager. We're going to dive right into things because we got a really cool topic for everybody tonight. We are talking about arousal in shelter dogs, what it means, what it looks like, how to work with it, and why it's beneficial for us to work with these dogs on managing arousal behaviors. So, first off, we're going to go kind of point by point through things. We're going to give you the definition. We're going to talk about how to recognize arousal. We're going to talk about the goals that we have when we work with these dogs in the shelter. We're going to recontextualize things for how volunteers can get involved with supporting dogs that experience high arousal. And then we will hold some time at the end for Q&A, like we always enjoy doing. You all know that we love to begin with our statement of intention in these sessions. The perspective that keeps us on the path toward doing right by these guys in the shelter. And that is that we have a responsibility to all the animals in our shelter to make their stay with us as happy and as healthy as we can possibly make it, for their sake, as well as the sake of their new families when they eventually go home and start that next chapter in their lives. So, Beth, why don't you take it away and talk to us about what arousal is?
All right. Well, welcome everybody. So what is arousal? Arousal dogs are experience high levels of stress and have difficulty regulating their arousal stress responses. And we all know that being in the shelter environment can be stressful. All of our creature comforts have been stripped away. They're not in their homes, not with their buddies or their family. So that can cause some undue stress. And some dogs, when they feel stress, they get aroused and it looks like they're kind of a goofy dog or they're jumping all over and seems like they're out of control. But it's kind of a call for help to say, I don't know what to do with myself and I need help. Um, and again, it could be lack of coping skills. They maybe never learned how to get through some obstacles in their lives. It could be that they just arousal dogs may show more relaxed behavior in the home, and it's only in the shelter environment that we might see that. Okay. So what what can cause that, right? High levels of stress. Again, shelter environment. I think we're wonderful as far as how we care for the animals. We have so many programs for them. Obviously, volunteers coming in and helping to socialize and work with them really makes a huge difference. But it's still a shelter environment. It's not home. And they can have difficulty just regulating their systems. And then lack of impulse control. Usually, when dogs are under due stress, kind of like with us, we're more emotional. And stress can show up in different ways. And we see that all the time. Sometimes dogs can shut down, they can act fearful, or they can act highly aroused. And part of it could be that's part of their nature too. High activity dogs. I know that herding breeds and pit bulls have a tendency to have a difficult time to be kenneled because they're active animals, they're more athletic, and it's hard to be confined.
So, Beth, you'd say that in some cases, rather than creating a whole new set of behaviors, the stress of arousal can really just kind of amplify what exists, right?
It can, yes, absolutely. So if you have a dog that has to be moving all the time and they can't, then it can just, when they do get out, they're going to make up for that, kind of, you know?
Make up for the lost time. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so body language that indicates, right, arousal. We know dilated pupils. Actually, sometimes if we have dark colored dogs and then they have dark eyes, it's kind of hard to see those pupils that are big. And sometimes it's really simple. You can see that they look like saucers, right? Panting. Panting can be because I'm really hot, but oftentimes if it's a quick, fast pant and they're looking around and everything, that's probably a sign of I'm pretty aroused, that blood pressure is up and they're just pulsing. Tense muscles in the face and the body. Oftentimes there's veins that kind of pop out on the sides of their mouths and they will do like a clown mouth and just look a little crazy. Um, they're really trying to regulate their bodies, and so panting sometimes can help them, but they're really struggling with that. Weight shifting forward, ears forward is I'm ready to rock and roll, right? I'm sure most of us in the shelters, being in the shelters, you might have seen that a few times.
And Beth, we also look for that panting, correct me if I'm wrong, to happen as a sign of like arousal or stress when maybe they aren't particularly hot or they haven't
Right,
been running around or anything. Like nothing has already occurred that would put them out of breath, but they are already doing that fast breathing.
right.
Hmm.
So there's, dogs pant for various reasons, and one of them can be, like you said, high arousal. If the dog is really, really hot and just ran the play yard or whatever, you're probably going to see a glistening tongue with saliva dripping and more of a hot pink compared to a panting dog that's a little bit stressed before they start running around. And it's probably going to be looking more velvety, but definitely the pace of the breathing is pretty fast. So, good point. Now, stressed dogs, fearful dogs can do the panting as well. Out of I'm nervous, I'm anxious, and you're going to see that heavy breathing in the panting, and you're probably going to see that velvety tongue. And sometimes it'll come out like a spatula. Good
But that's
question.
good.
Yeah,
You make a good point about right the that there can be overlapping reasons for the
yeah,
panting, which is why we always look for concurrent body language signals from them to kind of give us a more precise reading on what they may be going through. Correct?
very, very much true.
Very good. So we talked about body language, how they're going to display just on themselves that they are highly aroused, but how are they going to act?
Sometimes when we have dogs that are highly aroused, they won't eat any food. So that's a sign that I'm really struggling, unless the dog is really just a finicky eater. But generally speaking, there's some kind of stress on board when they're not eating because we give pretty good treats at the shelters, right? Inability to focus is probably one of the biggest things that we see. Hi, Cara. Nice to see you. Inability to focus on anything. They come in and they see the toy, but they can't pick it up, or they look at people and they just drive by. They can't seem to focus on anything. May jump on the handlers. And oftentimes, if a dog continuously is jumping up, it's really like a plea for help. Do something. I don't know how to do this. Do something, do something, do something. Um, Leash tugging. I'm really frustrated. And so oftentimes they'll grab the leash. And so that's where it's like, okay, we definitely have some high arousal here. Let's see if we can give them a stuffed animal to carry instead, and maybe they'll drop the leash out of their mouth. Vocalizing is another one. They can get frustrated, and you can see the arousal before you even get them out of the kennel with the barking and the whining and the jumping. Um, and low tolerance or real frustration. They're just frustrated. And again, when we're emotional, not always so logical. And you can probably see that they just sometimes I call them they're like vibrating. They're just really excited and they don't know how to control it. So, love to talk about this because I think this is really helpful to know that if we notice early on, right, what threshold means, what it is, and how it can kind of stack up to a problem. So, the dog is walking. I know that at Detroit, we're close to I-75 and it's loud. And some dogs, it's like, wow, that's a little bit stressful when you take them outside and they're like, whoa, what's going on? And that could cause some stress. The traffic, when it's really backed up and we have, backups on I-75, um, wow, that's a little bit more stressful. You might see some body language changing as these little illustrations show, whale eye, lip licking, their ears are going back and forth. And then other dogs are barking and they're kind of maybe going at the fence as they walk by if they're outside or even in the kennel runs or whatever. And then, oh my gosh, it's a new person. I just can't cope. And so, again, high arousal, oftentimes what happens is they might start vocalizing, they might start jumping, they might start mouthing the handler. They might just jump on all the participants if there's a group of people. They might just shut down. But oftentimes, again, with the arousal dogs, they start to act out. And so it isn't always an easy thing to cope with, but you can see how they went over the threshold where it's like I was coping, I'm showing the stress signs, but now I don't know what to do, so I'm going to act out. That's basically what this is kind of showing you here too.
And
It
now I
builds up.
notice in our diagram here, these are all stimulus that we consider maybe stress causing for a dog, right?
It
Traffic,
can be,
busy
yep.
street, other dogs. But I think it's important to note that arousal signs can develop from many positive stimuli, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe it's not necessarily a new person, but it's my favorite person is shown up now, and oh, I'm so excited to see them. Or here's a whole
Hmm.
big crowd of people, and I love people. I'm going to go nuts for these people, right? So it's not just negative stress stimulus that is going to cause them to climb toward this threshold, right?
Right. One of the things that we might notice is that when they come up to you and they're jumping on you or they are pushing for attention and you start to pet them, they can get over aroused by that. And that can be like electricity. And it's like, and oftentimes they'll tell you that's too much. That's not really what I'm asking for. But it looks like it because they're in your space and you think, oh, let me just pet you. Things will calm down. But not necessarily. That can cause, I guess the best way to put it is there's a time and place. And maybe there's other things that we can do to help bring them back down. But yeah, they can get overstimulated by a lot of things. Definitely.
Very good. So when we have a dog who is highly aroused, and obviously in most cases, we are going to want to help them manage that behavior or at least get back to some kind of baseline where they can be safely handled. So how about what goals do we have when we are thinking about that, Beth?
So what we want to do is in whatever case that we have, what kind of arousal that we're seeing is we want to lower their stress level if we can. And so that might be teaching them a calmer behavior, like find it. I love to teach the interrupter. And if just a plug for recess, if you ever want to participate, if you haven't yet, recess is a really great place to learn some new tools to work with, little games that we teach and things to help the dogs decompress and give them something else to do that's a little bit more productive as opposed to maybe jumping and mouthing and causing chaos. And we teach them to go to mat, anything that's going to get the dog to work, maybe for a treat, a goal, maybe a game of fetch. If the dog is too aroused by fetch, then maybe we would teach them something else. And there's a settle game. There's all kinds of things that what we want to do is help them build skills to say, focus and bring it back down. And oftentimes it doesn't take a lot with most cases to see them be able to calm down and bring it back down to kind of normal, right? Sometimes a sniff walk really helps them. Again, if they're afraid of the traffic, we're going to stay on the side where it's quieter. Maybe the grassy area where we have at Detroit. At Westland, we have these wonderful little wooded areas where the dogs can sniff. And I see oftentimes volunteers sitting on the bench with the dogs, just hanging out in the shade. And you can just see this dog was jumping all over and now he's like chilling out, maybe getting a couple of treats and maybe just getting a few pets.
And I like how you pointed out one aspect of things that does or can make it rather sometimes a challenge for the handler is the fact that that settling, that control, that impulse to come down, it has to come from within the dog, right? So we have to really teach them how to use the tool rather than it's more convincing than it is controlling, right? We're convincing
Right.
them to learn this tool and use it from within themselves because we can't just vacuum the stress out of their body, right?
Correct.
It's got to
Yep.
come from within the dog. So that leans into, right, all of our stuff about giving them agency, giving them choice, empowering them more than trying to control or manage them.
Yep.
Because this is a skill that they're going to need even after their time in the shelter, right? Again, the shelter can be a place where that stress will magnify existing behaviors. So a dog who is highly aroused in the shelter, we can maybe expect them to still show some of that behavior at home, and we're helping their new family manage that and stay safe and comfortable with that dog by giving them these skills now when they're with us.
Yeah, and the other thing, I guess that's a very good point, is that if you see the dog, like if we're playing fetch and the dog is just completely out of control or they keep jumping and mouthing, we need to change the environment. Sometimes it's overstimulated because they're near other dogs, the traffic, or can we change the environment? Can we teach them something else? Can we get them out of where all the overloaded stimuli is to give them that chance to decompress. Sometimes just changing the scenery helps. So those are all really good points and questions and thoughts. So
Very good. Okay. So here we got a little video of one of our shelter friends devouring a foraging tube as part of our utilization of enrichment to help manage stress generally in the shelter, but also as a tool against or tool to promote settling behavior, I should say, rather than being a tool against high arousal. Beth, can you talk a little more about what enrichment, sort of what the place is for enrichment within all of that?
yes, for sure. I mean, we give enrichment every day. We kind of, give a variety and we create enrichment. Volunteers do, staff does. It gives them, it's kind of a boredom buster, but I'd like to talk about this particular dog because I remember this dog. Um, and this was not an aroused dog. It was a very, very, very anxious dog. It came into our recess session and he was shaking and panting, and he had a spatula tongue, and he was looking all over, could not go near anybody. He just a little bit of a quiver. He was just struggling big time. I'm like, oh my goodness. And we had taken him for a walk, and he was really not interested in sniffing, so that wasn't going to help him. Um, and I said, let me just give him an enrichment item. He may not want it because he wasn't eating treats either. He wouldn't look at anybody. He averted his gaze. He walked around. He's just like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. So I gave him a paper towel tube, and he, as you could see, he laid down. He splooted his little back legs, and he chewed that. I don't even know if he ate all the treats, but he enjoyed the destruction. That is a natural behavior for dogs. And it's just, I know Kara is really big on enrichment. It is just like, I know I can see the smile there, but it really does. And after he was done, he looked up like, oh, there's people. He got up and went to every single person, kind of sat in the crook of their legs, got snuggles, and said, oh, sorry, got to go to the next person. Soft body, his tail was wagging, his ears were natural, the pupils kind of went down a little bit. He's like, I'm okay now. I mean, that is the beauty and the magic of enrichment. It can really, really make a huge difference. So when we have a dog that just can't settle and he's bouncing, and we have dogs that are jumping on the tables and everything, it's like, okay, we're going to give them an enrichment item, or we're going to give them a chewy and see, and they automatically go to the blanket or towel that we lay down, and they stop. I had another dog that was just vibrating, and he was all over the place, and he was jumping on people, and he was jumping on the tables, and he's just like a little thing. We gave him a bag. He chewed, shredded it, and he went down, laid down, took a little mini nap, got up and went and visited people. And that was a high arousal puppy. He was like 6 months old. So I love it. They love it. Great thing.
I think it's a great tool as well. And I'd like to point out that in that the first story you told about the dog on our screen here, is that you use that enrichment as a tool to help him adjust to the environment that he was in. And then he did adjust and was able to function well in that space
Yes.
and like do the thing he was there to do, which was interact and, get some work done with the people. For our volunteers in the shelter, I think it's a great thing to keep in mind that using enrichment in advance of an interaction is something we don't necessarily talk about a lot. Like using
Right.
enrichment to prep the dog to be able to work with them. And especially with our arousal friends, that arousal
Yes.
behavior can really present as, whoa, I got energy to burn, I gotta get out, I gotta get out. And we as the handler, as the volunteer, the person gonna maybe get that dog out, we feel like, oh, I got to get him out. Wow, look at him. He's going and going and going. I got to get him out and burn that energy. Maybe sometimes the answer is, I see this, I see him being up here. Maybe the answer is, I don't get him out right now. And I give him some enrichment and I come back to him after I work with a different dog so that he can have a minute to do his thing and to come down and to work with me on a lower level of stress, right? Because the solution maybe isn't to just take that highly aroused dog out into the play yard and start throwing a ball back and forth,
Right.
because we're just going to be sending him further and further up that ladder of arousal until he's just, hey, man, I'm going nuts over here, right?
Yeah, and again, the key those are really, really good points because but it's up to the individual because they're all so different. We have some dogs will they can't focus and we give them something and they don't even touch it. So sometimes that sniff, take this dog for a sniff walk, then come in and then they can do stuff. They can focus now. Sometimes it is that if they can't focus on anything, they want to, but they can't do it. They can't engage with the toys or anything. Sometimes just giving them just a little whatever you got, a chew or an enrichment item, and let them calm down. Then they're like, oh, okay, I'm ready. Let's do, what are we going to do? Right? Then you can start introducing some things that might help them.
Mhm. And that's a way that we can keep ourselves as volunteers safer by sort of overriding our own impulse to just see the energetic dog and want to get him out of there and let's go burn some energy, right? We want to really examine why do they look like that in the kennel before we're working with them? Is there maybe something we should do before we just leash them up and go zooming off?
Right. And again, dogs that need to burn off energy, it's really, really important. But also, if we keep them at that level of arousal and then we put them back, did we do any service? So, what we want is yes, they need to burn the energy. Yes, they might need to learn something if they're interested. Then bring them back down, calming things. And sometimes that's when you give the enrichment. Then you take them back and they're like, where's my water bowl? I need a break. Perfect. Okay, sorry about
Absolutely.
that. That was
That's all right.
very good.
So objectives for arousal dogs in the shelter. Tell us about those.
Okay. So really our objective is, I guess the way I look at it is we want to teach impulse control. We want safer play. We don't want the dogs mouthing and grabbing at us. Even though most of us that work in the shelters with the animals don't mind being jumped on, but most people are turned off by that. So we want to teach the four on the floor if we can. Better meet and greets, right? And again, who doesn't like a dog that's got four on the floor that can settle when you need to? Making eye contact is huge. We teach that too in the recess sessions. And it's pretty simple to do, but also games like, what I call polite play, which is really fetch, but you don't ask the dog or try to take anything from them. You wait for the drop and then you throw it. Oftentimes, what the dog is really into toys, they want you to play with them and engage, but I'm not going to take anything from you. I'm going to wait for that drop and then I'm going to throw the next one.
Mhm.
So, this is a good example. This dog was a perfect dog for this. So, yeah, we can show the little
Yeah, I'm gonna
video.
play the video again. I'd like everybody to observe there's a moment where the dog kind of goes and leaps for the toy that's in Beth's hand, and you're kind of winding back to throw it, and you just tossed it quicker because you saw the hand, the mouth coming for your hand and said, "No,
Yes.
we're gonna get it gone, continue the play, right? Show the appropriate behavior." So we're approaching with the previous toy. We see the new one, we drop it after a moment.
There he finally drops it. Then I throw. Yep.
Then you throw, you've got the next one in your hand, jumps at it, and then boom, leaves your hand quickly before he can snatch it out of your hair, or she can snatch it out of your hand.
That's right.
And you're always trading. You're always
Always trading.
trading.
Always ready. Never try to take it from them. They're faster than you can. It could be an accidental bite because they're going to grab and you're going to be, whoa, what happened? What just happened? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is a great thing for high arousal dogs if they're interested in. Sometimes you find out, I call them professional ball players. They love the tennis ball or the stuffies, and some don't know it yet. But if they're interested in the game, you can teach it. It's really great because who doesn't like a dog that fetches? I mean, come on. Um, but not all dogs understand or are interested in that. But we find other things that they can do. So, but again, I don't want to do this and then put the dog back. I want him to do some calmer things before I'm done with him. That's going to
Yeah.
help
So
our arousal dogs.
this is a mid interaction
Yep,
thing that we're seeing here. This is not how you would necessarily conclude with a dog, and not definitely not the only thing that we would do if we were working with a dog, a
exactly.
highly aroused dog in the shelter.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, so if I can do my best here to kind of crystallize what the key takeaways here are, we want to understand the body language, right? That displays arousal, that keys us in on, hey, this dog they're up here right now. We want to respect that body language. So that means greeting arousal dogs with calm energy, right? And not necessarily leaning into that and, hey, buddy, nice to see you. Let's scrub all over you and you're already jumping at me and let me just wind you up further, right? We want to ignore those unwanted behaviors. A lot of times, right, the goal with any, they're just trying to burn the energy or they're trying to get a response from us. If they get a rise out of us, if they make us do something by jumping at us and putting their paws on our chest, they're going to keep doing it because hey, that I got a result out of that, right? So the way to teach them is especially great with the jumping when we want four on the floor. We teach volunteers in the shelter. If anyone remembers from their positive start training, you turn your back. You just give them nothing for it. Show them that there isn't a result to be gained by jumping at you. Ignore those unwanted behaviors. Teach the ones that you want. So reward them for doing the things that are positive and desirable and safe. Um, Make sure to use enrichment for success. That could be before, during, or after an interaction. Um, really would love us to just generally open our minds up to the idea that enrichment can happen anytime. It doesn't necessarily have to be a thing that you only do instead of walking a dog because you can't walk that particular dog for some reason. It's a great way to still provide that dog with some entertainment and some quality time if you can't walk a dog. But it's also, like Beth is saying, it's an excellent tool to help them bring themselves down either to a manageable level where you can start working with them or bring them back down to sort of a baseline that you can put them away in their kennel without causing any further kind of stress upon them because they've worked it out and they've brought themselves back down to their baseline.
Love it.
We want to stop interactions if things feel unsafe, if we're not comfortable with the dog that we're handling or the dog we're interacting with, especially if the dog cannot calm down. If I have played some
Right.
appropriate fetch and used some enrichment and done a sniffy walk, and that dog is still up here trying to muzzle punch me in the face, I'm probably going to call it at that point. If I'm in the
Yep.
shelter, I'm probably going to go talk to someone on our behavior team, or I'm going to talk to my
Yep.
coordinator to let them know that I worked with a dog who did not find a way to come down from his highly aroused state so that we can get them some additional support. In the
Yeah.
shelters, that can look like behavior medication, additional enrichment throughout the day, time out of kennel spent with the behavior team. There's a lot of stuff that we can do, especially behind the scenes, things that aren't necessarily immediately visible to the public or to volunteers, that can still help the dog manage those feelings and keep their stress levels in hand. Uh, Always ask for help if you are
Yeah.
interacting with a dog and you need assistance. If you are handling a dog and you need assistance, this goes for even out in public. This is not necessarily just a shelter specific piece of advice. If you're dealing with a highly aroused dog anywhere and they put you in a position where you don't feel safe anymore, talk to that dog's owner or handler, or separate yourself from the situation. Um, but you, as the trained volunteer, may be the first person in a crowd to recognize that the dog, a dog out somewhere is experiencing that arousal and maybe needs some assistance. And then to include another plug, attend doggy recess. Those are weekdays at the Detroit and Westland facilities. Great learning opportunity. You may see arousal dogs. You may see other dogs that are dealing with fear or overstimulation or anxiety, fear of new environment, stranger danger. Beth does a great job in those recess sessions of really meeting the dogs where they're at and helping the volunteers who attend kind of understand just what is this specific dog going through? How can we use him as a guide for similar behavior and how to approach it? It's a really great way to see a lot of these concepts that we're talking about here in person, um, and kind of get that additional hands-on, firsthand experience, so that you can say, not only have I done, some book learning, gone to a lecture like we did tonight about it. I've handled it. I've worked with these dogs, and you'll find that you're going to feel that much more confident when you are confronted with a highly aroused dog that may need your intervention. Other ways.
Yes.
So sorry,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead, Beth.
No, I was just going to say it really does make a difference, and you can see the difference in almost every dog that we take out. You can see the stress melt away, and it's really, really helpful, and it's a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, it's really the first time, if anybody hasn't experienced this before, the first time you see a dog sort of cross over that threshold back to calm, back to
right.
I am within myself again and I feel good. it's a powerful moment to see, and you just feel you'll be so proud of them when it happens.
That's
It's
right.
absolutely wonderful. It's one of the reasons I really love what we get to do, is to just to see the progress that these kids can make in our care.
Yep.
So, other ways to help. We're talking about things that aren't necessarily shelter specific, but in the shelter, give space in the hallway for a highly aroused dog. That also may go for in your own neighborhood. If you have a neighbor who has a dog that is always bouncing off on the end of the leash and trying to get after everybody that passes by, they're just, they don't know they're four on the floor, right? You can give that dog space. Walking up to say hi to your neighbor and their dog is going to get you jumped at by the dog, and not really going to help the neighbor keep that dog calm while they're trying to get around around the block and get back home. Um, Only touch dogs when they are calm, right? Human touch activates very powerful stimulus in a dog. They have a
Yep.
lot of nerve endings all over their body. Those that enjoy it really enjoy it. They love getting pets and rubs and scritches from humans. But if they're already up here when they're getting those pets and scritches, it's only going to send them higher. And it may not necessarily be a favor, even if, like Beth said earlier, even if they look really excited and happy to see you, it may just be that they are real highly aroused and they don't really know what else to do in that moment.
Right.
Um, Avert your gaze or just move on, right? Um, if anybody comes along to that highly aroused dog and their handler and gets involved, well, they're involved. That dog's going to pay attention to you. You're going to have some of that undesirable or difficult behavior redirected your way. So sometimes maybe we just want to give them a pass. We don't want to interact at all. Remember that eye contact is a powerful thing with the dog. They can take a lot of meaning and sometimes a lot of stress away from eye contact with a human. So be mindful of how and when we make eye contact with dogs, especially again, a dog who is cannot keep his feet on the ground and you're staring right at him. How do you think he's going to take that?
Yep. That's true. That's true.
In the shelter, this is another shelter specific thing. Quiet time at Berman, specifically at the Westland shelter between 11 and noon. We like it to be somewhat of a quiet hour for the dogs before the adoption day begins. So one way you can help an aroused dog is let them have that quiet time. Give them that hour to decompress. It is not the worst thing in the world if a dog is in their kennel for a little while versus going out for a walk. If being in their kennel means that they've got more time to decompress, to work on maybe a long lasting chew or some enrichment, and again, bring themselves back down to baseline so that perhaps by the time the adoption day begins at noon, they're presenting a little better in their kennel. Maybe they look a little calmer,
Right.
they're more approachable by the public, and we're enhancing their chances of meeting the right person at that point by giving them that opportunity to relax for a while without us hanging around them for a bit. Toss treats on the ground. Very, very simple concept, but worth mentioning. Treats should
Yep.
go on the ground, especially if the dog is highly aroused, difficult to handle. If they are already challenging your ability to like hold the leash, to keep them on the ground, hand feeding them is not necessarily going to be the best idea. We saw the video of Beth playing the trade it fetch game with that dog, had an almost kind of near miss there when she was lunging at the toy. Beth went to throw it. Imagine if we're trying to hand feed treats to a dog like that.
Right.
Her aim is not going to be as good as when she is calm and focused. And one of those teeth might tag your skin in just the right way to open up a little cut. And boy, oh boy, now we got to talk about reporting a bite and going through the whole process there. For something that may have been avoided, we just drop the treats on the ground, let them find the reward down there. It's also helpful in general. Again, if we're talking about an aroused
Right.
dog is not going to stay on their feet. Well, if the rewards are down here,
Right.
that's where I'm going to keep looking for them. And what do you know? I have to keep all my paws on the ground to sniff around on the floor to look for those treats. So you're helping them in that way as well.
Yes. Love it.
Making enrichment in the shelter or even outside of the shelter, you can talk to friends and family, neighbors, save their uh, paper towel tubes, donate their old newspapers, send in a box or a container of treats occasionally. Keeping us supplied even with the stuff to make enrichment is a huge, huge help because it ensures that we've always got those tools on hand to work with these dogs that need a moment to come down and they need something to focus on. So even if you're not making it in the shelter, just talking to the people you know about saving those critical supplies that are probably already in their homes anyway, is a great thing that you can do to provide that direct support. And you barely lift a finger. It's a fantastic deal. Um, Cutting up and bagging treats, right? Making sure that we have a plentiful supply of treats in the shelter. If you're going somewhere out in public and you know there are going to be a lot of dogs there, take some treats of your own. Be the guy, the gal that has treats at the party, at the gathering, or at the brewery patio. You know, always ask if it's not your dog, if they can have treats before you give them. But you might end up being the hero somewhere to somebody whose dog is having a hard time settling, and you can just give them a handful of nudges or something and say, "Hey, man, take these and toss them in the grass over there. Let him sniff around and find them. He'll be okay." Right?
Yep.
Um, Donate long-lasting chews. These tend to be used up very quickly in the shelter, which I know sounds kind of oxymoronic because they're long-lasting chews. But you know, every dog gets one. Once they get it, it belongs to them. We're not going to share it with their neighbor. But we use them. We use them to great effect, and they are such an excellent, effective tool that we do tend to go through them quite a bit. So things like, just any sort of wrapped up chewy long lasting thing, raw, the rawhide pig ear nylabone type stuff, you know it when you see it on the pet store shelf. Those sorts of things go a long way toward providing relief and relaxation to these guys in the shelter. In addition, of course, the usual stuff, promote adoption, right? Encourage people that you know to come looking for their next pet, their next family member at the shelter rather than buying it from a breeder. Get these guys out of the shelter. The less time they have to spend in the shelter, the less that stress of their stay is going to amplify those arousal behaviors, right? Promote fostering or foster yourself if you have the time and the space and you're interested. Getting these guys out of the shelter is one way that we can really, really limit arousal behavior. We talked a few times already about how the shelter can amplify that. So if we put them in a home environment, which is the ideal place for a dog to wait for their new home, their next chapter, right, we're going to see less of that arousal behavior. And it may come down to a more manageable level in the foster home compared to living in that much smaller, louder, stinkier kennel all day. Dog day getaways as well. Participate on your own. If you maybe you're not available to come to recess, you have stuff going on the days where we're hosting the regular recess sessions, but you got a different day of the week available. Come in, take a dog out for the day, bring them back by the end of the day. You've just given them an enormous break from the stress of staying in the shelter. And you can take them out and practice some of the things that we've been talking about, long sniffy walks. Take them home and give them a long lasting chew. You can really observe the ways that these day trips can again just create massive change for these guys. Granted, it's uh, they got to come back to the shelter. That is the stressful part that is waiting for them at the end of it. But that break means something, and that break it helps them just
It's
endure and continue surviving and potentially thriving in our care. It's always worthwhile, even if it feels a little bit bittersweet. I know to sometimes to bring them back to the shelter at the end of the day. It is almost never not a net positive for them to go on those getaway trips. Sleepovers as well. It's
Yep.
basically an overnight dog rental, test drive for adoption potentially. But even if not, again, even if they have to come back, that dog got a really, really nice, probably pleasant, probably quieter and calmer night away from the shelter. And that means it really means something to them in a way that you wouldn't quite imagine from just kind of examining these programs on the surface. So, uh, all that being said, it takes a community. We appreciate everyone's time tonight spent with us learning about this topic. Um, we would love to hear more questions from you, either in the Q&A we're about to do, or you can reach out to any of your volunteer coordinators at any time once you've seen the recording of this video. We are always happy to talk in greater depth about how you can work with dogs in the shelter on this topic, how you can advocate for dogs in the community who may be experiencing the same thing, and again, push us toward that humane community 2030 goal of making Michigan America's most humane pet community within the end of this decade. So, time for, oh, I have resources. I forgot. I apologize. One more hidden slide there. AWLA.org, KikoPup.com have some more great resources for specifically arousal, but also other behavioral issues that dogs might experience. And of course, we always love to plug the Fear Free Shelters program. Remember that that is a behavioral science course that you can take that helps you understand what effect shelter stays have on animals, how we construct the shelter space to maximize their success and reduce their stress, and what you can do as a volunteer to participate in Positive Start or in a different supporting role to make sure that we are doing everything we can to help them manage their stress. That course is free of charge. All you need to do is submit a volunteer verification form with one of the volunteer team members' signatures on it. So if you're at Westland, that would be me. If you're at Detroit, that would be Allie. Um, or Roseville, also Allie, Sterling Heights Petco, that's Ashley Ray, but really any member of the volunteer team. You can reach out to Jen Rosen if you'd like to have her signature on your fear-free verification form rather than me or Allie or Ashley. That's totally fine. Really just ask any one of us and we will be more than happy, excited even, to get you on that pathway of fear-free. Now, we have reached the point. I apologize for being a little premature, but we can take questions now. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to type them in the chat, or if you'd like to use the raise your hand function in Zoom, or just unmute your microphone and let us know what's on your mind. I'm going to pause briefly to give you some time to do that and or type your questions.
I have a question, Beth.
Yes.
For the shelter environment in particular, when do you need to remove yourself from either a room or if you're in the play yard with a dog, when the arousal may tip into something else? When are those, what are those signs that you'll start to notice when you need to do that?
So for an arousal dog, I would say if the dog can't stop jumping or mouthing and they are just out of control and you can't get them to stop, if they're leash tugging, and you usually if a dog is leash tugging, you just move and usually they will stop. But if you see the dog, they just can't stop, you need to, if you're in the play yard, you can leave that dog in the play yard secure and go get help immediately. If you're in the Hoffley or the PEC, the same thing. If the dog just cannot stop, and sometimes if you toss treats away so you can get out the door and go and get some help right away. Yeah, if you see a dog that is like kind of jumping on you or grabbing your clothes, anything like that, where or they start to make you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes dogs they get aroused and then they might be playing with a toy, or then suddenly they're just it's like a gut feel. You feel like, why am I scared now? There's something not right. That means, again, secure the dog and go get some help, and don't try to be a hero and try to handle it yourself. There's been times where I had to radio and say, you need to come in. I need help. The dog, I can't get out, or the dog is really out of control and we're going to need some assistance. So every once in a while it happens. It's not very often, but if you see that, or if you're taking a dog out and they start leaping and jumping on you, or they're really, really aroused and you have a hard time getting them out and they just kind of knock you around, don't take them out. They're already saying that I'm so aroused. Alert the behavior department right away, because they might be able to get the dog out into the play yard and see or reassess the dog. He might need a medication adjustment, but let somebody else get the dog out. Don't take him out if you're feeling this dog is scaring me, or I feel uncomfortable, or he's overpowering me, anything like that. You should get some help.
Yeah. And remember, you can call it quits on a dog interaction at any time. That could mean you're almost done. You've already been out for 20 minutes, but you were going to do another 5, but maybe it's time to put them away now. It could be when you're 2 steps away from the door of their kennel and you
Yes.
go, whoop, I can't handle this, or this is too much right now. I'm not feeling comfortable with this. We're going to turn right around and we're going to go back into the kennel. I'm going to figure out something else to do to help you right now. Um,
Yep.
don't ever feel like you are obliged to remain in an uncomfortable position with a dog.
No.
Remember that at Michigan Humane, we never and will never ask you to sacrifice or deprioritize your safety in favor of anything on behalf of an animal.
Yes.
Thank you, you two. You guys answered that perfectly.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I know,
What
I
else
know
we
I've
got?
had a couple, I know I've had a couple of those instances, so I just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
We all experience them. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another thing to point out is that there is nobody in the employ of Michigan Humane who has never been made uncomfortable by a dog.
Right.
Yeah.
That it
Yeah.
Got
simply does not happen.
it. No.
Everybody has a moment or moments with dogs that they feel like, oh, yikes, maybe I'm out of my depth. I didn't know
Right.
what I was dealing with. This went in a direction I did not expect. And it happens to everybody. So if you do find yourself in that situation and do need to end an interaction early or go get help or anything, it is the furthest thing from a mark on your record as a volunteer. It is the furthest thing from a problem. We are, in fact, on the contrary, I will be so proud of you for
Yes.
deciding to pause or stop an interaction to prioritize your safety and make a different choice on behalf of that dog.
Yes, indeed. Even if you feel like the dog is too strong, they pull too hard, or they're just too much. I think that knowing what your limits are and saying it's okay, somebody else is going to have to take this dog out. I know that it's beyond my ability, and that's okay too. It really is.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Do we have any in the, I don't see any in the chat just yet. Anyone would like to come off mute or raise your hand? I'll wait another beat in case someone's typing slowly. But from the silence, I'm going to gather that everyone feels super informed and has expert level knowledge of dog arousal now that you've attended.
Thanks to you two.
Ah, you're funny. You're funny.
Well, we've got the best here to teach us, so
Can I can I actually put Kara on the spot for a minute?
Oh boy.
please.
Oh, it's not hard. You can handle this. So I know that
God.
you're really into enrichment. So if you have an
Yeah.
aroused dog, can you talk a little bit about what you do for the stimulation to keep the dog's little brain going?
Yeah, so I think it's more of like when I think of enrichment, I think of anything that benefits the dog, its natural behaviors, right? So if if I have an arousal dog or I walk into someone's house and the dog's just bouncing off the walls, I'm gonna find so it's almost like the brain's not working at that point in time. So they can't think, they don't know what to do, they're all over the place. I will try and find something that calms them down. So I'll give them like a licky mat or something that kind of brings their energy down a little bit and that they actually enjoy doing. The one thing I tell people though a lot is you don't want to give them something that's too hard because you don't want to make it like very, you don't want them to be frustrated so that arousal level just keeps going up and up, you know. So yeah, that's
So you
yeah.
mean like a harder puzzle?
Yeah, so
Yeah, treat
if I give them
puzzle.
a puzzle, it's like, okay, I'm going to give them a puzzle and something to work on, and it's too hard for them, then you can kind of see them starting to get a little frustrated with it. Then I'll kind of give them something a little easier so they can be more comfortable and get that sense of accomplishment that they
Right.
can figure something out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that also enrichment can come in different forms. So it's not necessarily food. We use food a lot because it's easy and we have several dogs in our buildings. But also enrichment can be working to get you sit before you get a pet. The ramp, the A-frame, um, the kiddie pools, the sniff walks. Actually, one of the things that sometimes we will do is we'll hide treats or toys. If dogs are toy motivated, you can hide them in the play yards, like under a box or whatever, and then they have to go sniff and find that. sometimes doing scent games can help too, where they have to go find a scent and then they get rewarded for that with a game of fetch. So depending on the dog's interests, some dogs are nose to the ground. That means they're really going to like the opportunity to sniff because that's a real natural behavior. So very good point that it's a natural, but if they're frustrated, it's like, I don't like to sniff. Why are we out here? I
Yeah.
want to play ball. Then maybe that's what we do.
Right.
But
Right.
yes,
So it's
sometimes,
like kind of offering a few different things to see what their comfort level is. And then so I do a lot of find it on my walks. So if the dog gets where he's barking at somebody else when we're being reactive, we'll do a little find it, and that'll kind of redirect them back to the calm state. So yeah,
yeah,
enrichment is
awesome.
awesome.
It is awesome. I like enrichment too.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we had.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, yes, thank you, Victoria. Appreciate it. I think this is a room full of fans of enrichment tonight. We're all enrichment appreciators.
Yep.
I'll also point out for our shelter volunteers, check on that stereo. Is the stereo playing calming music
Right.
when you're passing by? If you need to reset the CD back to track one so that there's calming
Yeah.
music again, go ahead. That is another form of enrichment. Even just a little bit of lilting piano coming through among all the barks and whines, it can help. It can
Yeah.
help.
It
Okay.
really does.
It does help.
Yay.
Any
It's a
other?
lifesaver, I believe. Like in shelters, it's definitely can be a lifesaver.
For sure.
Absolutely. Quite literally so.
Yep.
Yes.
Any
It is.
other takers for questions? You want to come off mute, raise your hand, type in the chat. I will say going once, going twice. We'll wait another extra beat in case we are typing something. Okay.
Good to see you guys. Thank you very much.
Of
Yes, thank you,
course.
Sarah.
It was good to see you too. I like the
Yeah, yeah.
hair. It's
Oh,
different.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I think with that, we are going to wrap everything up. I want to thank everybody so much for your time.
Yes.
And I'm going to stop sharing and then figure out how to stop recording. Or Allie, maybe you need to stop the recording.
I got it. There we go.
All right.